All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Adnan Syed. I'm the director for the MedTech Talent Accelerator, and I'm welcoming you here for our Explore MedTech seminar, which is about becoming 21st century ready, the digital transformation of the Society of Gynecologic Oncology of Canada with Carine Trazo. So before we get started, I'll just do a quick land acknowledgement. So I'm here in the Toronto area, or it's also known as Takaronto. So Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the treaty and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So with that, I would like to briefly introduce our guest speaker today. So Carine Trazo is currently the Managing Director of the Society of Gynecologic Oncology of Canada. She has been with GOC since 2016. Her previously held roles include Communities of Practice Coordinator and National Manager. Her professional interests include strategic planning and digital transformation. She's taking the GOC on a transformation journey, including the development of the GOC Academy, its future educational platform, and the GOC Research Unit, where the Society will be creating the hub for online gynecologic oncology research. So without further ado then, I will pass it on to Carine. So please, Carine, the floor is yours, and this is your seminar to run. Take care. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Adnan. Very, very pleased to be here. I have no conflict to declare. I would like to especially thank the MedTech Talent Accelerator Program and also Dr. Mary Susan Thompson for inviting me. I would also like to thank Dr. Michael Funkifang, our Chief Strategy Officer at the GOC, who's really the architect of a lot of the work that we're doing in terms of digital transformation and our strategic thinking and direction for the society as a whole. Today, I would like to present 3 different learning objectives. The first one will be to review our transformational journey. The second one will be to estimate the use of technology that is enabling the society to be 21st century ready. And then the third one will be to appraise what lies ahead for the GOC in terms of present and future medical technologies. And I would like to ask Mary to launch the first poll, which will be on which of the following cancers is a gynecologic cancer, in order for us to gauge if you know a little bit about gynecologic cancers.
Sorry.
Mary, whenever we get to a place where there's the maximum number of people, if you could share the results, that would be great. We invite everyone to actually take the chance to respond.
Sure. Shall I end the poll?
Yes, please. Okay, so great job. 80% of you actually chose endometrial cancer. No, breast cancer does not fall under gynecologic cancers, because gynecologic cancers are actually the cancers of the female reproductive system. So breast cancer are cancers that both men and women can have. So before we dive into our objectives of today, I thought it would be good for you to get to know a little bit about GOC. So our vision is to be the voice of gynecologic oncology in Canada. We are a national body, and in our mission, we aim to improve the care of women with or at risk of gynae cancers. And we do so through various means. We raise the standards of practice. We encourage ongoing research. We promote innovation in prevention, care, and discovery. And we also do a lot of advancing in terms of awareness and advocacy. It is also very important for us to disseminate knowledge to other healthcare practitioners who are non-focused on gynecology, but who are working together with us in the various multidisciplinary teams across the country in the cancer centers that we have, as well as patients and the general public. We also love to cooperate, and we also love to create partnerships that enable us to get the work that we need done. We are a national professional association since 1980, so we're 41 years old as of this year. We were very happy to be able to celebrate our 40th anniversary last year. We would have loved to be able to do it in person, but we made do even though there was the pandemic that came upon us in early 2020. So the purpose really of the professional association is to create a hub, a collegial hub for members to come together around different things, including education, so the getting of their continuing medical education credits in order for them to be able to be in good standing with the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Canada, to have the opportunity to work together on research, to also have the opportunity to look at all of the different gaps within the healthcare system that will affect the work that they do at their local, regional, and provincial sites as well. So in order for us to really grow as a society, we've been working on various strategic plans throughout the years, and we usually use about a 5 to 6 year plan. So we created 7 pillars for the 2021 to 2026 strategic plan, and those include the digital transformation, which we'll dive in very much so. And every other pillar that I will enumerate are actually very important because all of our transformation is required at all those different levels. The first one is around clinical research and delivery ecosystem. So the delivery of ecosystem is really the set of software technologies that we're using in order for us to be able to operate and deliver the right healthcare to the patients, as well as the right type of research that is needed in order for us to advance the work of gynecologic oncology. These can include clinical trials, health services research, translational research, operations research, and business processes delivery research. The third pillar is the precision medicine platform. And what precision medicine is the tailoring of medicine or medical treatment for the patient. So the patient becomes very centric, it's very individualized. It's also called personalized medicine. And what this essentially does is it enables the patient to receive the best care possible. So we will later on talk about the differences between traditional medicine and the digitally transformed medicine. And we'll dive into why it is important for patients in the 21st century to be able to have personalized medicine. So within that pillar, we do a lot of collaborative work with other disciplines in order for us to find the best care treatment pathways. And one of the examples that we have is the creation of a national BRCA collaborative, where we are now getting to the point where we're optimizing the way we test for patients who have the BRCA1 or 2 genes, which is both for breast cancer, but also for ovarian cancer. And we create networks of other partnerships in order for us to be able to get to a point where we have the right type of care treatment that is needed for the populations that we're serving. The fourth pillar is national standards and education. And our goal is to be able to enhance the gynecologic cancer standards. So for example, if you're looking at big cancer centers, such as the ones in Toronto, you will usually see that they are able to have everything that is needed for them to be able to proceed. So that includes a number of gynae cancers in the hospital. It includes the type of robotic instruments for their surgeries. It includes the type of treatments that are available. But you see a disparity when it comes to, for example, cancer centers that are in the Maritimes or those that are in the prairies. Not necessarily in Alberta, but more so in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. So our goal is to be able to really enable all of the different places in Canada to have the same type of standard. We also do education, and we have a GOC Academy where we tackle the different topics that not only our members can learn about, but also all the other healthcare professionals that we work with, such as the general practitioners, the family docs, the nurses, the geneticists, you name it. We provide them with as much information about the work that we do, the gynecologic oncology, the education around prevention, care, follow-ups, and all that, in order for them to be well equipped so that when they are working with patients who are facing such cancers, they're able to provide the right care to those patients. And part of also this pillar is a huge emphasis on prevention as well. The fifth pillar is really our members' engagement and relevance. We do so through our communities of practice, which is the solution that the society has found in order to mitigate a lot of the gaps that we have been identifying. So basically, it's a group of researchers who come with a common goal around certain topics at hand, and then they flesh it out into various projects. And it can range from anywhere from being a small survey all the way to a huge retrospective or prospective study, and even sometimes to a clinical trial. We also, within that pillar, have a focus on advocacy. We advocate for our patients in order for them to be able to have access to compassionate programs for certain drugs, especially when we see that there's bigger number of women who may not be able to afford the medication and that is on hand. Our external engagement includes partners, such as those who are in labs, tech companies, industry, so pharmaceutical, patient groups, other allied healthcare providers or general healthcare providers, and surgical companies. We also have a special program at GOC that's called the GOC Extramural Career Enhancing Program. And through that one, we have volunteers that are coming from colleges or universities that help us at the operational level. We're opening it up this year for medical students so that they have an opportunity to start working with our physicians through our communities of practice and are able to work directly in the projects. And we also had the pleasure to be able to have our first intern through MedTech through this internal program that we do as well. And then the last pillar is really looking at our financial sustainability and the value creation. So gynecologic oncology really has, those are the main cancer sites that you will have for gynae oncology. And it is a specialized field of medicine. It's the female reproductive system, as I alluded to earlier. You have cervical, ovarian, uterine, which is also called endometrial, vaginal and vulvar cancers. But we also have rare cancers. And when we get to our case study, I will be bringing that up as well. So what is GOC's transformational journey? We started with step one. We wanted to really think through and say, why do we need to transform? So it was important for us to define why there was a need for a transformation. And this conversation actually started since 2015. So we felt that it was important for us to transform because there was a need for relevance. There's a huge amount of competition within the field of medicine. We compete for everything. We compete for grants, awards, we compete for money for research, we compete for educational opportunities, all of that. And because we're subspecialty, we're very niche and we have a lot more competitions with even sister societies who are outside of Canada, such as SGO, which is in the US, and I know even our sister societies in the UK and Europe. So it was important for us to think about How do we deliver the things we deliver? How do we do the things that we do? Are we relevant? Are we remaining in the trends and all that? There was a need for efficiency. We're not very efficient in a lot of the things that we were doing, and we wanted to create an efficient way of operating and an efficient way of producing as well. And we wanted to produce new things and create new opportunities, including developing new partnerships. And as I alluded earlier, because there's such a huge competition within the field of medicine, there was a need for us to also think about how do we gain money to continue to function, to continue to push for more research for our patients and for prevention, advocacy, and all that, and then for the creation of new revenue streams to be able to actually get that revenue. And new research was coming down the pipeline, new information, and there was a need for the development of more education in order for us to be able to disseminate the knowledge that was being gained through that new research. Our second step was to look at what our tactical components will be. So we wanted to focus on data gathering and analysis, research, connectivity, which is huge. How do you get a bunch of physicians who are very busy, who are surgeons first and foremost, from across a huge country, coast to coast to coast, to come together on the regular to think through problems and to find solutions and to be able to execute those solutions once the process to do so was put in place. And how do you use those various technologies to enable that? So our third step was to look at our value proposition. Because we're niche, it's easy to say, well, we're the only ones in Canada, so we don't have to make an effort. But it's not necessarily true, because a lot of our members were starting to go to the US with the advent of a lot of webinars online and all that kind of stuff. And really before the pandemic and everything else, people were starting to be able to attend certain elements of things either in person or over Zoom, WebEx and all that. And we were losing a lot of the audience that we needed. So we needed to rethink who is our audience first and foremost. At the beginning, we thought it was only the gynecologist and the other members of the society, which includes other healthcare professionals who have an interest in gynecologic oncology. But we understood after our analysis of the entirety of the work that we do, that it also included patients, it included other healthcare professionals who were primary practitioners who got to see our patients before we did. And we also needed to also inform the general public. So in the case of someone who has a genetic predisposition for ovarian cancer, once they get tested, they become the testing is positive, they become a patient, but their family members are not, but we will encourage by prevention to have their family members tested. So being able to provide that information to the general public will enable a lot of people to get tested earlier and for us to be able to tackle those issues before even the cancer is in play. And then we thought about what are we trying to solve? What needs do we need to fill? And we're still working on those questions. We do have some thoughts around the things that we're trying to solve, and but we're still cementing it. And why is it important for us to solve it? We thought that we're the only ones that can solve it because we're the body for it, but we may not be. So we're still questioning ourselves around that. And how are we going to solve it? What are the ways in which we're going to be able to achieve the things we want to achieve? And is there any proof? Do we have a proven track record of solving similar problems and delivering positive results? Do we not? Or is the proof external? And how do we use that external proof and use it as a measuring criteria for ourselves? And then why are we different? Why is GOC different? Why is GOC positioned as such? And are we able to make a difference as well? Why do we do what we do? And why do we matter to, again, our patients, the public, and our stakeholders? Then we moved on from all of those questions to step number 4, which was to the start. And from all of the answers that we got from those questions, we started working throughout the vision for the next year, the next 5 years, which is what I had presented to you in the 7 pillars. We started thinking about how to transition our back office processes in order for us to enhance efficiency and scalability. So much more hiring, a lot of automated processes, using the right communication tools in order for us to diminish the amount of time that we're spending in doing things that can be done administratively much faster, and so on and so forth, including even finance and every portion of our society. Then our next focus was on our educational and research portfolio, as well as our communities of practice, because this is where our ideas are generated, all of our projects, our research, and anything that is really at the center of what GOC does. And we also needed to define the opportunities that digital transformation will provide to enhance our financial stability and health systems relevance. And we did start seeing some of the successes around that in terms of the diversification of our revenue streams, being able to be more and more relevant. I'll give you an example. In the past, whenever we wanted to do projects, we will approach and knock on many doors. But because of our transformation, now we have a lot of our of others who are actually coming to us and saying, we heard about you, GOC, we'd love to work with you. Here's how we want to go about it. Can we find some alignment? And then from then on, we're able to work. So it's quite interesting to see that we went from being the ones pursuing others to become our partners to now being sought and for them to come to us first. Our last step for this first learning objective is transforming our work. And I'm using the case study for our community of practice in low-grade serous carcinoma, which is one rare cancer. Earlier, I talked about the 5 main cancers in Gynecology, but this is one very small and rare cancer. This community of practice was established in 2016. A few of our members and physicians had noticed that there was a good number of their patients who had the low-grade serous carcinoma. So they thought that maybe it would be great because it was seen at different centers to actually do a retrospective study about it and to determine if it was something that was more prevalent, and if so, what could be done to really mitigate that and much earlier than when they get to those later stages by the time they get diagnosed. So what we did is that we involved 5 different sites: Hamilton, Montreal, Halifax, Calgary, and Vancouver. And we did it through a tool called RedCap, which was created in 2004 by Vanderbilt University. And basically what it is it's a secure data collection tool and that did meet the HIPAA compliance standards. It's free, it's easy to use. It enables you as a society or as a group or as a cancer center or hospital or university to hop onto their networking their networking platform and be able to even partner with people, whether they're in Canada, in the US, anywhere in the world. It's very secure, it's flexible, but it's very robust in terms of data collection because it follows really, truly the data collection methodology that is being used within Gynecology. So some of the hurdles that we encountered when we did that was the RB approval across multiple sites. It was quite brutal, and this team was absolutely fantastic in really pushing through. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but the ethics protocols and agreements can be quite gruesome, and especially if you're doing it on multi-sites. So usually what you want to do is start with the one site and then negotiate data transfer agreements across the other sites and be able to also do the REB, the Research Ethics Board approval through the other sites. So there's always a little bit of a hesitancy when it comes to research for people to easily share their data. Everyone wants to guard them very much, but we're getting into the world where we need more and more data sharing in order for us to be able to get to the solutions of the problems much faster. And so now we have a framework for it because of what they had to go through. Now we know the steps to take, how to avoid the pitfalls that we had fallen into before. And we're using that same framework for all of the subsequent work for any of the other communities of practice that are coming down the pipeline. There's been a lot of successes with this group. They received a CIHR, which is from the Canadian Institute for Health Research Grant Award in 2017 and in 2018. The 3 publications that ensued from this retrospective study are right there for you to see. And this was so successful that there was a decision in 2020 to have it morph into a community of practice in rare cancer. So instead of focusing on only one rare cancer, they're now going to focus on a few more rare cancers, including low-grade epithelial, ovarian cancer, mucinous cell, and other carcinomas that are in need of real research. Their next step is not only to take a look at retrospectively for those other rare cancers, but to now start prepping themselves for prospective studies so that they're able to collect data in real time. Now, we still have a hic. It's still because there's no connections between the different hospitals. You have everyone is working through different EMRs, which are electronic medical records. There's a disconnect, and so you need to still hire people to go in, take the data from one center and either upload it into REDCap, or if they have a full integration with REDCap, be able to connect there. So when you're dealing with the multi-sites, you're dealing with how they're collecting the information, what are the standards for collecting the information, what information are you able to take and share with the other groups based on the data transfer agreements. And you also have the issue of the uploads and downloads instead of being an automated process that ensures that there's no loss in data. So this is it for the number of steps. And before we get into becoming 21st century ready, I'm just going to pause for a minute to ask if there are any questions at this time. Looks like there are none, so we'll continue. And so we dived into a bunch of digital tools. Some of them were hit or miss. We tried different things. I have not listed everything that we've tried here, but we basically had them divided in 3 portions. Anything around communications, research and education, and then in terms of the practice for our physicians themselves. So like everybody else, we did Zoom. We've also rolled out Teams, and we've gone on to social media, website, the regular stuff. And then we did a switch to a new membership software to enable us to really create that connectivity that we talked about, which is GoUp. It's a very, very good software for membership because it enables us to do a lot of our processes in an automated way and has a lot of integrations with, for example, our financial software tool, as well as other things that we need, such as even the Zoom integration. Now I'm going to spend a little bit more time on the research and education one. I talked a little bit about REDCap. The next one that we're working on right now, we had the framework done by the processes framework done by the MedTech intern who came on board with us last year. And we're now putting it into application and creating a health bot where we're going to be able, in its first phase, be able to answer generic questions for patients who use it, both in English and French, and have the bot provide that information to the patients without them having to dig through documents, to dig through pages of websites, something interactive for them to be able to use. Of course, the health bot can be used for much more than that. I'll talk about it when we get to what our HealthBot 2.0, as in phase 2 and more, will actually look like. We thought that it will be important for us to create a digital literacy, which we're doing with our physicians in order for them to start understanding their digital identity, as well as understand how to use those basic communications tools that maybe are very easy for you, but are quite hard for them. And so we schedule one-on-one times for those who are willing, and we work through that with them. We're also working on a patient decision aid tool, and we have a physician decision aid tool that was launched in 2019 around the decision around HPV vaccination. It's actually a patient decision aid tool. And so what was happening is that all the decision aid tools, which are tools that are utilized in order for a patient to use their set of values to come to a decision. So for example, you're faced with HPV vaccination. Do I get vaccinated or not? You look at the advantages and the disadvantages of taking vaccination, and you go through a series of questions. And at the end, based on the value system that you have and based on the answers that you've provided throughout the tool, it tells you what is the best decision for you to take. And you're able to share that information with your physician by email. So you can just put it in your physician's information. You can also send yourself that set of results as well. We were the first to create an interactive HPV decision aid tool in Canada. Prior to that, and most of the current decision aid tools in Canada are still paper-based, so PDF. They're available online, but they're PDF. They're not interactive in the way that you're navigating through a programmed tool. And we're also doing the same thing in terms of physician decision aid tool, where we're working on creating one that enables a physician to understand how they come to their treatment care decision around colposcopy and HPV. And in terms of practice, I'm not going to dwell too much on that because I'm not a physician, but our surgeons use robotic surgery, and they used to use telemedicine even before the pandemic, but it was sporadically used. But now there's an explosion for it, and so they provide virtual care for patients through that as well. So my next question for you is, what lies ahead? What are the things that are upcoming, and what should communications for a society of busy surgeons and a society where people are from in a country that's very large and who have such differences in the ways that the care are taking place, what are the communications tools that are coming down the pipeline in terms of technology that should be in the purview of GOC? I'm going to give a minute for you to provide those answers through the chat, if there are any suggestions there. There are no wrong answers.
Very quiet group.
Yes. And then do you have any suggestions?
Could you reiterate the question?
Reiterate the question.
Please.
So earlier I talked, and maybe I can go back to my earlier slide. So earlier I talked about some of the communications tools that we've been using. And then what we want to do is to think through what is lying ahead and what other communications tools we can use that will make it so everybody talks about being zoomed out, everybody talks about being just web dexed out and all that kind of stuff. So we need to make sure that we're able to find new tools. And I wanted to know from the audience, are there new tools that are coming down the pipeline that could be of help to GOC for us to consider?
Sure. So I'll take a stab at it. So in terms of, what are like in terms of high tech tools that are coming out for communications, I think it's, how do you make digital as real as possible without it being real? So that's where, AR, VR are key areas where I think there are significant developments taking place in order to create like a virtual reality type space where you can meet virtually. You don't have to be physically in front of each other. So I think that could be a way. And then it also allows for we're right now developing a VR module for clinical immersion through the MedTech Talent Accelerator. And what we're seeing is we can develop a variety of scenarios, a variety of environments in which you invite people to, and then that can cultivate discussion and conversation and interactions based on a specific goal. So that'd be interesting to see how do you engage stakeholders through such tools. It does require the ability to be able to get those goggles and all those kinds of things. But there's also kind of on the lower tech side, there's just the gamification. So I don't know if you've heard of GatherTown, which is an interesting event platform where you can literally use your keyboard and walk around this little map, and you can set up your stage for your event and a poster session and all that. And you can go
avatar?
With an avatar, and like you're this little person, and you're able to do that. So it's again trying to create in the digital space more lifelike experiences where you would meet people in person.
Thank you so much, Adnan. That's very good. And I'm going to segue with what you just talked about with the AR and VR. Right now, our focus is to actually do simulations for things like minimal invasive surgery. So previously, what we had was having a robot sent at one of our annual general meetings and have our fellows work through the robot. But with the advance of AR and VR, you can actually be able to simulate the surgery completely and without having to bring the full robot there, and still able to measure if the person has done it well. Did they cut the arteries, the veins properly? Did they do the suture properly? Were they able to remove the tumor properly and all that kind of stuff? And even the follow-ups and all that. So we're looking at databases 2.0, a better way to be able to not only gather the information in a secure way, because there's been all these leaks. So those are very sensitive information when it comes to medical information. There's also a lot of changes that are happening around privacy laws and all that, and we need to be also prepared for that. We are building a virtual research unit, and we're starting with even the basis of it with the clinical trials education program, which we're launching at the beginning of 2022. And we're going to be exploring what would it look like to be able to have the patient actually use the home testing kits and be able to measure things for themselves and all that kind of stuff. And we will be able then to be to do what is necessary for them without them having to come all the way to the hospital. So patient-centric healthcare is the 21st century healthcare that we're going for. It is also what they call home healthcare. So empowering the patient with education, empowering the patient with the testing, the tools at hand, and being able to measure even through wearables all of their vitals in a faster and an easier way. And then for the practice, robotics 2.0 is actually being able to do robotics even from very far. So you could be in Bolivia, and then you are operating and taking over the robot somewhere, let's say in Spain. And so this is where the practice is going. And telemedicine and virtual care 2.0 is also just more than having those Zoom meetings with the patient, is taking it to the next level. And in nano care, in terms of the precision medicine platform, where you have the delivery of the therapy directly into the cancerous cell to kill it, or the delivery of the medication directly into the cell in order to empower it and to provide the necessary jolt for immune system response. And there's so much more around that as well. So very quickly, I am going to talk about the difference between traditional medicine and digital transformed medicine. And so before, and what we have currently is everything is population-based. We create a set of treatment. If you are diagnosed with this particular cancer, you're going to go through the same type of treatment that is available. What we're trying to do is with a digitally transformed medicine, because it's going to be precise, it's going to move to individually based. Clinical or lab is the point of care traditionally. It becomes, the patient themselves become the point of care. The hierarchy exists between the doctors and the patients. On the digitally transformed, it is a partnership. The doctor gives orders for the treatment plan currently. The doctors and patients will collaborate. Patient data is owned by the institution. That could be a medical center, university, healthcare center. What we are hoping for is for the patient's data to be owned by the patient. The doctor's individual experiences dominate. So I have had experience doing X, Y, and Z. What we are trying to do is to have both the doctor's experience as well as data that is analyzed in order to find the correct diagnosis or treatment plan. Physicians have the authority in traditional medicine. What we want is physicians to become guides. The data is balkanized in traditional medicine. The data is distributed in new medicine. And in traditional medicine, everything is expensive. We want it to be less expensive and less burdensome on the system. Care is physically centric. You have to go to a hospital, clinic, have an appointment. Now we have virtual care, which is great, but you still have to go in from time to time. But what we want to do is for care to be distributed and mobile. And then the last one is affiliated care delivery systems. Education and support services are expensive, but what we wanted is for us to actually be able to have insights into gaps so that we do not need to pay to have all of that education done. Now, for those who are in biotech, I'm positing a very simple example of a problem that we need you to solve. So where do you come in with, because you're studying, you're doing your master's and your PhD in finding solutions for medical technology solutions in order to really mitigate the gaps that are in healthcare. So the one thing that I'm proposing is from our COP, our Communities of Practice in Medical Cannabis Payment and Pain Management, and it is launching a new project very soon. The intent is to determine the use of cannabis medically or recreationally among all Canadian women between 18 to 65. And a traditional survey may not be the most feasible approach. We will need you to consider participation from across the country, and you need to have a good number in order for you to have a good study. And for you to think about all provinces, territories, urban, rural, remote. So being able to have access to all these people, French, English. And I will invite everyone to take a few minutes to think about what you can do technologically to solve this. The process that you will choose need to be efficient, effective, easy to use, should be able to gather all the data we need, still have data privacy, and also it could be a mixture of old and new technology, or things that we haven't thought about. So I invite everyone to take their time to think through and to share their thoughts around this? Thank you. And again, there are no wrong answers.
So while we wait to see if our participants want to contribute anything, Carine,
Sure.
I'm going to ask a bit of a context question to you around, so give me your kind of a rationale for doing such a survey in the community.
Perfect. So basically, there are issues with the use of opioids in terms of pain management. You do know that cancer patients deal with a lot of pain, a lot of times, pain from the cancer itself. And sometimes it is pain derived from the cancer treatment. So it could be radiation therapy, chemotherapy, and now immunotherapy, where we see a lot of adverse events that are happening. So in order to mitigate that, opioids have been the main choice. We do know that some patients use alternative means such as acupuncture and all that kind of stuff, but we have no idea in terms of the use of cannabis. And more so because Canada made it legal, we do know that some are using it recreationally, so they were already using it, and then others are using it medically, but we don't know who's using what. And because we do not know, it is very difficult for the physicians who are in charge to be able to actually create the proper pain management plan for their patients. So one of the goals that we have is understanding how they're using it. How often do they use it? Was it prescribed? Was it not? How do they acquire it? What is the method of use? Do they put it through food? Do they smoke it? What is the purpose of the use? If it's recreational, is it because they just have always used it, so now it's become a habit? Or is it that whenever they're feeling the pain that they use it? And also measuring their subjective pain management. So this is what they're using for themselves and creating as a plan for themselves.
So thank you for that. That helps better understand it. Awesome. So is there anybody here who would like to comment on that in terms of, how would you deploy such a survey?
We were counting on you guys to solve this little problem for us today.
Sure. Well, we actually, interestingly, we had a seminar just probably a few weeks ago where we actually had a pain management clinician who gave a talk. So immediately, that comes to mind as one way is, can you do more of a indirect survey, like instead of going directly to the users or the patients? Can it be a survey of practitioners? So it could be family doctors or
those are not effective. Those are not effective because they get a plethora of emails and they are completely saturated when it comes to surveys. They get surveys galore. So we're trying to actually find a different route. We want to know what is the route that we need to take. We do know that some are using different types of digital tools on a regular. Is there a way that we could create together with one of those wearables a program to actually track that? Because the wearables usually track certain things. They will track your heart rate, they will track your blood pressure, they will track all of these things. Is there something that is feasible that we need to do? Is there a different tool that we need to create and make it available to patients or the public in general through social media? What are the technological tools that we can utilize that are in existence, or are they things that we need to think about, that we need to create separately in order for us to be able to get to that.
Cool. It's a fun challenge
It is.
to try and figure out in terms of how best to do that. And so any other thoughts here from the participants?
I don't see anything in the chats.
Yeah.
Maybe they're still wrapping their head around the thoughts.
Sure. So as you were speaking, one other thought comes to mind is around, you mentioned wearables. So it would be interesting to see, is there an impact on, blood pressure or heart rate or any of the things that wearables monitor once someone consumes, cannabis or anything like that. So is there like a unique signature that could be identified? And then that could help in translating that into some sort of a detector.
Absolutely. And because we know that cannabis has an effect on brain waves, it will be interesting to see if there are any of those wearable technology companies who will eventually even start measuring people's brain waves, because you have issues around mental health illness. You have the depressions where your brain waves are affected, even when it comes to hormones, hormone imbalances, and sometimes our cancer patients go through hormone replacement therapy when they have, for example, a intervention where the entire female reproductive system is removed from their body. So you have all these things that need to be measured, but we also do not want to get into a place where we have big data, but we're not able to actually review it and get something out of it. So what do we measure? How do we measure it? When do we measure it? What are the facilities that we can create? So it's not about just creating the technology that is needed. It's making that technology work for the physicians. That's why it's so important for those in the medical technology field to actually sit down with the physicians to understand what it is that they're facing, where are the gaps, and how to mitigate those gaps. Often that conversation is not happening. There's the creation of the tool, and then there's, okay, physicians, work with that. When it should be, we're sitting together, from the administrators to the technicians, to the engineers, to the healthcare providers, to even the patients themselves, because if it is going to be something that's wearable or that they need to use, they need to have some input into what it is. So I think we've given enough time, Adnan, to everyone. It looks like this is a problem that will follow the MedTech group, and we can posit it to the rest of the group if you would like. It's fine. It's very general in nature here. We're not going into the details of what it is that we're actually going to be collecting. So I don't have anything after that. It's just the questions. And so the floor is open for the last, I think, 3 minutes, if there are any other questions that you have.
So while we wait, I mean, I can ask, so just, just the last point you mentioned, right, Carine, around interactions of, scientists and engineers with physicians and patients and things like that. Are there, like with your society, are there opportunities to do that? And if so, could you describe that a bit?
Absolutely. So I talked a lot about our communities of practice. Our communities of practice are not internal. So they have our members, but they also involve people who are external, who will help us solve problems. And we just actually finished our COP4 forum, which happens every November every year. And what it is that it becomes almost like a brainstorming set of sessions where we tackle different diseases, and then we take a look at how do we mitigate those ones. And the conversations can go all the way to we need to have a technological intervention. So in 2018, that was, let's create an HPV decision aid tool. And then we involved a company to help us get there. So what needs to happen is beyond just the coming to the forum, we are at GOC working to trying to partner with all those medical technology companies that can start having those conversations with us on a yearly basis and sit down and look at what are the trends that are coming down the pipeline, start getting involved in our communities of practice in general. And so that when we get to those brainstorming sessions, we're able to actually come up with projects where there's alignment for all. So alignment when it comes to the lab companies, they are all about testing. There's alignment, testing and diagnosis and all that. Alignment with the pharma company, they're all about treatments as well as drugs. Alignment with the technology companies for surgeries, technology companies when it comes to medical devices, alignment also with patient groups, and alignment with other healthcare professionals who are part of the multidisciplinary teams that are needed to provide that excellent care for those women.
Awesome. So I mean, just sharing as part of the MedTech Talent Accelerator, we'd love to hear about this COP, for the forum for the next round, and if there's any reports that are generated out of that, because I think that's a key thing, right? Like as our students are, in science or engineering fields and looking at, the healthcare system as a place to, develop technologies or work on technological solutions, I think hearing about challenges, limitations, barriers are likely spark ideas of how to mitigate and how to solve. So I think those opportunities are great, and I personally didn't know of these COPs, so that's quite insightful for us to be able to access that.
Thank you so much, Adnan. Our COPs are very different than most COPs. We actually execute things and bring them to fruition.
That's fabulous. Awesome. So last call for questions. All right. Okay, well, thank you so much, Carine. Really appreciate your time here. Your presentation was really insightful, learned a lot about, I've seen there are societies of, specific kinds of cancers and others that are created, and, you've really kind of opened the door to describing, what they do and the amazing work that your society is doing in looking at these kind of cancers. So really appreciate your time and sharing that with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.